They told you God makes up his mind once and never changes it. But that's not the whole truth. Because love changes things. Mercy changes things. And today, God says something you never expected to hear. I've changed my mind about you. Not because you earned it. Not because you finally got it all right, but because you came back. Because you didn't give up. Because you looked up when everyone else told you to stay down. This message is not for the perfect. This message is for the ones who were almost done. For the ones who were just about to walk away, but didn't. There's a moment in Scripture that people often skip past. It's in Jonah chapter 3. God told Jonah to speak to Nineveh, a wicked city, a violent, corrupted place, a place no prophet wanted to save. But Jonah finally delivered the message. And then what happened? The people changed. They repented. They fasted. They prayed. And what did God do? Then God saw their works, that they turned from their evil way, and God relented from the disaster that he had said he would bring upon them, and he did not do it. Jonah chapter 3, verse 10. He changed his mind. Why? Because when hearts shift, heaven responds. Let me bring this to your life. There's a man who once thought God was done with him. Let's call him Daniel. He had lost everything: his family, his reputation, even his faith. One night, in a cheap motel room, with his hands trembling and a bottle by the sink, he prayed the weakest prayer of his life. God, if you still want me, I'm yours. Nothing happened in that moment. No thunder, no voice. But the next morning he woke up with peace, a kind of peace he hadn't felt in decades. 3 years later, Daniel is a pastor. Not because he was perfect, but because when he came back, God changed his mind. And maybe you're not that different from Daniel. Listen to me. God doesn't change his character. He doesn't change his truth, but he does change his direction when you change your direction. That's mercy. That's the heart of a father. You think God is looking at all the things you've done wrong. You think he's made a final decision about your life, but he hasn't. Today, he's looking at you again, with fresh eyes. Not because he forgot your past, but because his mercy is bigger than it. You were dead in sin, but now you're alive in grace. You were far, but now you're near. You were written off, but now you're being written into the story. And the reason? Because you turned, because you cried out, because you didn't give up. God says, "You gave me a reason to change my mind." There was a woman once, let's call her Maya. She was on the verge of losing her kids because of addiction. She had been in and out of rehab, lied to everyone who ever loved her, and one night she said, "God must hate me by now." But something made her walk into a small church meeting. The pastor didn't know her, but he pointed her out and said, "God says, you're not forgotten. Your chapter isn't over." She cried the whole service. Today, she's been sober 6 years. She got her family back, and she's leading others out of the same pit she once sat in. God changed his mind. Not about who he is, but about what she deserved. Some of you have been carrying shame for so long that you've started to think it belongs to you, like it's part of your identity. But God didn't label you with shame. He labeled you with mine. And even when you wandered off, he never stopped watching the road, hoping you'd come home. Maybe you think it's too late. You've made too many mistakes. You've taken too many detours. But if you're still breathing, you're not too far gone. God says, "I see you looking back toward me. That's enough. I can work with that." Here's what you need to hear. God doesn't hold grudges. He holds promises. And right
Remember the prodigal son? He rehearsed the whole speech. "Father, I'm no longer worthy." But before he could even finish, the father ran to him. He didn't scold him. He didn't shame him. He threw his arms around him and said, "Put a robe on him. Put a ring on his finger. My son is home." God changed his mind about the punishment that son thought he deserved. That same Father is reaching out to you right now. You may have failed. You may have fallen. But you didn't stay there, and God says, "That was enough for me to change everything I had planned against you. I'm rewriting it with mercy now." Let me ask you something. What if today is the day God rewrites your story? What if today is the day you hear this not as a coincidence, but as confirmation? He says, "I've changed my mind about you, not because of your strength, but because of your surrender." There's a verse that says, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning." That means He wakes up ready to give you another chance every single morning. He's not holding yesterday against you. He's offering you today. Here's one last story. A young woman named Rena had walked away from her faith after her fiancé died in a car crash. She was angry, broken, cold. For years, she said, if God was real, He wouldn't have let this happen. But one night, scrolling on her phone, she landed on a video that said, "God hasn't changed His plan. He's just waiting on your heart to come back." She dropped her phone and cried for the first time in years. Today, she's not just healed, she's helping others heal. Because when she turned, God turned too. So now, what about you? God is not done with you. And yes, He's changed His mind. That doesn't mean He changed His word. It means He sees you with new mercy. He sees the fight you had, the tears you cried in secret, the moments you almost gave up but didn't. He sees that you still believe, even if your belief is hanging by a thread. And that's enough. So here's what God is saying right now. I was going to let you go your own way, but you cried out to me. I was going to give you what your actions deserved, but I saw your heart. I was going to let the storm finish what it started, but I stepped in. Because you turned, because you looked back to me. I've changed my mind about you. This is the God of second chances, of 7 times 70 forgiveness, of open arms and new roads. So today, choose to believe this. You are not who you were. You are not what you did. You are not disqualified. You are redeemed. And God is changing the narrative for you right now. Not tomorrow, now. This is not the end of your story, God says. This is the page where everything begins again. They think once you're broken, you stay broken. But God never agreed with that. He saw the cracks in your life and called it room for His glory to shine through. Today, He's looking at you again, and He's whispering something so personal, so unexpected. I've changed my mind about what comes next for you. You've walked through some valleys. You've made some mistakes. You've prayed prayers you weren't sure anyone was listening to. But heaven heard. Every silent cry, every whispered, "God help me," every "I'm sorry" you didn't even know how to say out loud, heaven heard.
And God responded, not with punishment, but with grace. Let me tell you a story. There was a boy named Ravi. He grew up in the church, but ran far from it when life got hard. He got into the wrong circles, chased the wrong thrills, and lost his way. He used to say, "I think God crossed my name off a long time ago." But one night, lying alone in a hospital bed after an overdose, he whispered, "If you're still real,
I don't want to die like this. That night changed everything. Not because Ravi became a saint the next day, but because God changed his mind about what Ravi deserved. Today, Ravi travels to rehabs and speaks hope into others who are walking the road he almost died on. Why? Because mercy rewrote his ending. You see, mercy doesn't erase consequences, but it redirects destinies. You may have scars, you may still be healing, but God is looking past what others judge. He's seeing what's growing inside you, and he says, "You gave me one reason to come running. That's all I needed." Some of you think you're too far, but you don't realize you're one decision away from coming back into alignment with your purpose. That's how close you are, not miles away, just one yes away, one surrender. One, God, I still believe. Help my unbelief. Think about Peter, the man who walked on water and then denied Jesus 3 times. People would have canceled him. But what did Jesus do? After the resurrection, Jesus asked him one thing. Not, why did you fail? Not, how could you? He asked, do you love me? That's it. And Peter said, yes, 3 times. And each time Jesus answered, then feed my sheep. In other words, I'm not done with you. I've changed my mind about where your story ends. What if God is asking you the same question right now? Do you love me? If your heart says yes, even a trembling yes, he's saying back, then I still have a purpose for you. I've changed my mind about your detour. I'm rewriting it into your destiny. Let me share another story. There was a woman named Sarah who spent her whole life trying to be what others wanted. She was a straight-A student, always smiling, always saying the right thing. But behind closed doors, she battled anxiety and thoughts of not being enough. One night, she broke. In her room, she screamed into her pillow, God, do you even see me? She expected silence. But what she felt instead was peace, a whisper in her heart. I see you, and I never changed my mind about loving you. That was all she needed to hold on. Today, she's a counselor helping teens realize they're not alone. Not because she's perfect, but because God turned her pain into purpose. You see, you don't have to clean yourself up before coming to God. That's religion. But God is after relationship. He wants you raw, you're tired, you're flawed, because that's where real change happens. And when he sees your heart returning, even just inching toward him, he changes his mind about what should have happened and replaces it with what could happen. You may have thought your failures disqualified you, but God says, your failures are fertilizer. I'm growing something beautiful through your brokenness. Let this settle in. God didn't change his mind because of your works. He changed his mind because of your willingness, willing to try again, willing to forgive, willing to hope again. Here's what the enemy wants you to believe. That mistake you made ruined everything. That opportunity is gone forever. That relationship is too broken. That promise expired. But God says, I can resurrect dead things. I can restore time. I can breathe new life into old places. He's not recycling your life. He's redeeming it. Remember when Moses murdered a man and ran away? Everyone would have said, his calling is over. But in the desert, with a burning bush, God said, now you're ready. Why? Because when Moses finally laid down his pride, when he stopped trying to fix it his way, God stepped in and said, I've changed my mind. I'm going to use you to set a nation free. What if your wilderness is the place God plans to relaunch you from? What if the thing that broke you is the very thing he's about to build you through? God doesn't look at you the way people do. They look at what's wrong with you. He's looking at what he planted inside you.
And he says, I'm still watering it. I'm still believing in you. I'm still calling you my child. Let me tell you one more story. A man named Jeremiah spent 20 years in prison for something he did in his past.
he gave his life to Christ in year 7. In year 12, he started a Bible study. In year 18, he led over 300 inmates to salvation. When he got out, he started a nonprofit for ex-prisoners. He often says, "God didn't wait for me to be free to change his mind about me. He did it when I was still behind bars." So if you feel trapped in regret, in fear, in cycles you can't break, just know your prison doesn't stop God's promise. Heaven isn't interested in condemning you. Heaven is interested in restoring you. And right now, this is what God is saying. I saw you fall, but I also saw you rise again. I saw the tears, but I also saw the trust. I saw how close you came to quitting, but you didn't. So yes, I've changed my mind about you. You're not a mistake, you're a miracle in motion. And for the one reading this thinking, but I still feel so weak, God says, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. So come as you are, bring your broken pieces. He's not rejecting you, he's rebuilding you. This is not a random message. This is personal. This is God speaking through the noise of your life to tell you, I'm not punishing you. I'm preparing you. And everything I once planned to withhold, I'm now ready to release. You're not hearing this because God has forgotten you. You're hearing this because He remembered. He remembered your name. He remembered His promise. He remembered what He whispered over your life before the foundation of the world, and He's changing the verdict. This is not the end of your story. This is the moment it turns. So breathe again. Believe again. Come back to the one who never left. He's not mad. He's moved. And His mercy is saying loud and clear, I've changed my mind about you because your heart turned toward mine. God never needed a perfect you. He just needed an honest one. And the moment you brought Him your honesty, not your filters, not your mask, He leaned in and said, this changes everything. You've been carrying shame like a second skin, but God is removing it gently now, like a father wiping the tears from his child's face, because you don't have to be ashamed anymore. You don't have to pretend anymore. You might say, but I made too many mistakes. But God says, yes, but look at how you came back. Look at how you didn't give up. Look at how you still whispered my name even when you were drowning in regret. That moment shifted something in heaven. That moment reactivated grace over your life. You didn't know it, but you were rewriting your ending by choosing to stand back up. Let me take you to a familiar story in Luke 7. A woman walks into the home of a Pharisee while Jesus is eating. She's labeled a sinner. Everyone in the room sees her as unworthy. But she kneels. She weeps. She pours expensive perfume on His feet. And Jesus turns to the crowd and says, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much." And then he looks at her and says, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace." He changed his mind about the shame everyone else tried to lock her into. Why? Because she turned her heart toward him. And he's saying the same to you right now. Your past is not your prison anymore. Go in peace. There's something powerful happening in the unseen right now while you're listening, because your heart is softening. Your spirit is saying yes, even if your mind still has questions, and God always moves when the heart says yes. Here's a story you won't forget. A man named Anthony lived a double life. Church on Sundays, lies the rest of the week. He was respected on the outside, but inside he was drowning. One day, he confessed everything to his wife and his church. He lost friends, he lost status, but he finally found freedom. And later, when asked why he did it, he said, "Because I realized God hadn't changed his love for me, so I stopped trying to hide from him." Today, he's helping men walk out of secret shame, because when he finally came clean, God changed the direction of his life. That's what grace does. It takes exposed wounds and turns them into healed testimonies. Maybe you've been thinking, "I want to come back to God, but will he still want me?" Let me give you the answer God gave the prodigal. Yes, I've been watching for you the whole time. Come home. Activocation. Take a moment to activate a mindset of grace and forgiveness. Repeat these words in your heart. God, I embrace your grace and forgiveness. I trust that your new thoughts and plans for my life are for good and not for harm.
You thought you messed up the plan. But here's the truth. You didn't mess up the plan. You just helped reveal how powerful the planner is. Because now your story carries weight. Your scars carry testimony. Your brokenness carries beauty. There's a verse in Joel 2:25 that says, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." You know what that means? It means God is not just about forgiving. He's about redeeming time, bringing fruit where there was once loss, turning empty fields into harvest again. And that's what he's doing in your life now. Here's another story. A girl named Lila lost her father when she was 10. She blamed God. She grew up angry, always searching, never resting. At 23, she found herself in a hotel lobby crying on a stranger's shoulder. The woman prayed over her and said, "God says he's never left your side." That moment broke something, and Lila started healing. Today, she leads grief support groups for those who feel abandoned. She often says, "God didn't change my pain, he changed what my pain meant." You see, God doesn't always change your circumstances first. He changes your heart in the middle of them. And once the heart turns, everything else follows. So let me speak to your heart today. The part of you that still wonders if you're worthy. The part of you that thinks it's too late. God says, "I've changed my mind about how this ends for you, because I saw the flicker of faith you kept alive even in your darkest nights." There are angels surrounding you right now, not because you earned it, but because God's mercy marked you.
And when heaven marks you, hell can't unmark you. No matter what they said, no matter how far you strayed, no matter how low you fell, you are not forsaken. You are being reclaimed. There's a verse in Isaiah 43:18-19 that says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing." God isn't holding your record over your head. He's building a new record under your feet, a foundation that cannot be shaken. And maybe you're thinking, but I've already failed again. I said I'd never go back to that sin, and I did. God says, and I saw you cry after. I saw the battle, and I honor that fight. You don't need perfection. You need direction, and you're facing the right direction now. That's enough for God to change the verdict. Let me remind you of King David. He committed adultery. He arranged a man's death, and yet God still called him a man after my own heart. Why? Because when David fell, he fell toward God. He didn't run from him, he ran to him. That's what repentance looks like, and that's what you're doing right now. So listen close. He's not holding a sword over your head. He's holding out his hand. Take it. Let him lift you again. Final story for today. A man named Dev was going through a divorce. He lost his job. His friends stopped calling. He started walking every morning just to stay sane. One morning, he saw a flower growing through a crack in the sidewalk, and something about it wrecked him. He whispered, "God, is that what you're doing with me?" And in his spirit, he felt this response. Yes, exactly. What they buried, I'm blooming. Today, Dev's life is far from perfect, but he walks with purpose. He speaks with compassion, and he says, if God can grow a flower through concrete, he can grow something through me. So here's what you need to hold on to. God hasn't changed his mind about your value. He's changed his mind about your verdict. From guilty to graced. From disqualified to destined. From broken to being built into something eternal. And if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. This message didn't find you by chance. God is speaking through it to say, you're still mine. I still want you. I've changed my mind about what your pain meant. Now, it means purpose. Let that soak in. Let that shift you. You're not starting over. You're starting forward. And heaven is cheering you on. Because grace always writes better endings. You never saw the moment heaven made the decision. It wasn't when you said all the right things. It wasn't when you looked strong on the outside. It was when you were crumbling and you whispered, God, I don't know how to keep going, but I'm still here. That's the moment mercy moved. Because God never needed a strong performance. He needed a surrendered heart. And your surrender was enough to shift everything. You thought God had already decided your story's ending, but now he's rewriting it in real time. Because when your heart turned, heaven did too.
There's a boy named Neil who grew up hearing about God, but never really knew him. His father died when he was 11. No one taught him how to grieve, so he buried it deep. At 16, he started cutting himself just to feel something. Everyone around him said he was hopeless, lost, damaged. One day he picked up a Bible from a waiting room. It was random, forgotten, probably untouched for years. He opened it and read the line, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted." He dropped the book and cried for hours. Today, Neil speaks to high schoolers, reminding them they're not too broken to be loved. Because God saw one open heart and changed his mind about what Neil's future would look like.
You think God's mind changes the way people's opinions do, based on trends, behavior, mood swings. But his mind changes based on relationship. When your heart reconnects with his, the entire blueprint can be redrawn. That's why he hasn't given up on you. That's why he keeps whispering even when you try to run. Because he sees something in you no one else sees. A returner. Someone who comes back. Someone who breaks down just long enough for light to get in. And that's what opens heaven's floodgates. When Jesus walked the earth, he didn't spend time with the ones who got it all right. He sat with the rejected, the messy, the undone. Why? Because those were the people who would recognize mercy when they saw it. Those were the people who would understand what it means when God says, "I've changed my mind about what you deserve." A woman once asked her grandmother how she stayed faithful to God after everything she'd been through. The woman had lost 2 children, survived cancer, and buried her husband. The grandmother smiled gently and said, "I kept walking toward the only one who didn't walk away from me." That sentence hit harder than any sermon. She wasn't perfect, but she was present with God. And that's what he honored. That's why her life still had fruit. If you feel forgotten, remember this. He didn't change his mind about loving you. He just changed the way he's going to use your story. You thought the past disqualified you. But what if it's the exact thing God is going to use to reach someone else? What if your scars are not shameful, but sacred? People see failure. God sees a future. People see delay. God sees development. People see disaster. God sees divine redirection. You're not in ruins. You're in reconstruction. Think of Elijah under the tree. He just performed miracles, called down fire, defied kings. But when fear hit him, he ran, collapsed under a tree, and begged God to take his life. You'd think God would respond with frustration. Instead, God sent food, sent rest, sent an angel to touch him gently and say, "Get up and eat. The journey is too much for you." No lecture, no punishment, just provision. And God used him again. Why? Because Elijah wasn't finished. He was just tired. And God changed his approach. Maybe you're not disobedient. Maybe you're just exhausted. And God is saying, "Come, eat, rest. I'm still with you, and I've changed the road ahead." A woman named Aisha spent years trying to become a successful singer. She sang in bars, did talent shows, chased fame. But every door kept closing. Eventually, she fell into depression and almost gave up completely. One night, lying on the floor, she asked God, "Did you ever want me to sing, or was that just my imagination?" That night, she had a dream of a little girl standing in a room full of orphans, singing a simple worship song. The next morning, Aisha knew what to do. She started visiting shelters and singing for abandoned kids. Eventually, she launched a program teaching music to children with trauma. Now she says, "I thought God said no, but it was just a different yes." God hadn't changed his mind about her gift. He changed his mind about where to plant it. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually redirection. And that's a gift, because God sees the long road. He knows what you don't. He protects you from what would have stolen your joy down the line. So even when you don't understand his no, trust that it's attached to a deeper yes later. He changed his mind about what the enemy had planned for you. He changed his mind about the pain becoming permanent. He changed his mind about the labels others placed on you. Why? Because you didn't quit. You cried, sure. You collapsed, maybe. But you didn't walk away. And that means everything.
There's something about the ones who stay, the ones who hang on even when it hurts, the ones who say, God, I don't feel you, but I trust you anyway. Those are the people God builds legacies through. Not the perfect, but the persistent. There's a man named Jay. He was an atheist for 20 years, mocked religion, argued online, dismissed it all. But he went through a divorce that shattered his world. Everything that gave him identity was gone. One night he randomly joined a live stream where someone was reading Psalm 34. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. He stayed silent the whole stream, but the next day he opened the Bible for the first time in 2 decades.
Today, Jay doesn't preach or stand on stages. He runs a quiet blog, helping ex-atheists explore faith gently. And he says, God didn't punish me for mocking him. He waited for me to get tired of mocking so he could heal me when I was ready. Grace changed everything. And it's changing you too. You don't need to fix everything first. You don't need the perfect apology. You don't need a clean record. You need a real heart, a willing heart, a returning heart. That's what God honors. That's why he said, I've changed my mind about you. If you're standing in the middle of consequences right now, thinking it's too late to turn this around, let God surprise you. He's been doing that since the beginning. He turned a murdering shepherd into a deliverer, Moses. He turned a teenage exile into a king's advisor, Daniel. He turned a fisherman into the rock of the church, Peter. He turned a persecutor into a preacher, Paul. And he's not done writing his surprises. You are not the exception. You are his next miracle. So here's what you do now. Breathe. Open your hands. Whisper the only words you need. God, I'm yours. That's it. That's the sentence that shifts everything. And God, in return, says, then I'll carry you the rest of the way. You've been bracing for consequences, waiting for the hammer to fall, the punishment, the fallout. You've told yourself again and again, I deserve this. I made my choices. But God steps in, stands between you and everything you thought was coming for you, and says something that undoes it all. Not anymore. I've changed my mind. Not because he's weak, not because he's forgotten justice, but because mercy overrules, because love speaks louder than law. You need to hear this. God is not a cruel judge. He is a good father. And when a child returns with tears in their eyes, a real father doesn't close the door. He opens his arms. That's what he's doing for you. You've confused his silence with disappointment. You've mistaken his delay for disapproval. But really, God was waiting for your heart to turn. And now that it has, he's moved. There was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a cheat, a traitor, a man who stole from his own people. But when he climbed that tree just to catch a glimpse of Jesus, everything changed. Jesus stopped, looked at him, called him by name, and then said something no one expected. Come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. Jesus wasn't repulsed by Zacchaeus' past. He was drawn by his hunger. That single moment of effort, of reaching, was enough for Jesus to say, I'm coming into your world now. And Zacchaeus changed, not because he was forced, but because he was loved. There's a girl named Anya. She was addicted to validation, social media, flirting, parties,
She needed constant attention to feel alive. But when her best friend cut ties and told her, "You don't even know who you are anymore," she broke. That night, she did something she hadn't done in years. She prayed. She didn't know how. She just said, "God, help me be whole again." The next day, she met a girl on the bus reading a devotional. That random moment sparked a friendship that changed her life. Now, Anya runs a small women's group for those recovering from insecurity and self-harm. She says, "I didn't deserve another chance, but God gave me one anyway. I guess He changed His mind." Yes, that's the point. He changed His mind when He saw you change direction. Even if you didn't have the words yet, even if your prayer was just tears, He saw your turn, and heaven responded. There's a verse in 2 Chronicles 7:14 that says, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land." He doesn't ask for perfection. He asks for posture, a turning, a reaching, and once that happens, healing begins. You've been so busy punishing yourself, you haven't realized God already lifted the penalty. You've been rehearsing your shame, but God is rewriting your name. You say, "I'm the one who messed it all up." God says, "You're the one I'm going to use to show what mercy looks like." You're not damaged goods. You're a living example of restoration. The enemy wanted to trap you in your past, but God changed the locks, and now the door that was once sealed shut is open again. Walk through it.
A pastor once shared the story of Jordan, a man who had been caught in a web of lies. He had cheated on his wife, lied to his team, stood behind a pulpit while hiding brokenness. When the truth came out, he lost everything. He thought God was done with him. But after 2 years in silence, counseling, and grief, he began rebuilding. Not his image, not his reputation, but his heart. He started writing devotionals anonymously. One of those devotionals went viral. It was titled, "God Isn't Mad at You, He's Waiting on You." He never planned to return to ministry, but God had other plans. Today, Jordan counsels fallen leaders, quietly, privately, powerfully. He often says, "God changed His mind about using me again, and I'll spend the rest of my life helping others believe the same." This is your moment to believe the same. God is not finished with you. The story you thought was over was only a pause. And this time, the page turns with grace in every line. You don't have to qualify. You don't have to impress anyone. You don't have to wait for a miracle to fall from the sky. The miracle is already happening, inside your heart. That ache, that whisper, that trembling hope, that's mercy rising. There's a woman named Shania who lost her child during childbirth. She blamed herself, blamed God, shut out everyone who tried to comfort her. One night, she sat on the floor in the dark, and out loud she said, "I don't know how to love you anymore." She expected silence. But what she felt instead was warmth, a presence that didn't answer her question, but wrapped her in something she hadn't felt since the loss: peace. From that moment, she began to heal. She didn't preach, she didn't post, she just started breathing again. And eventually, she began writing letters to grieving mothers. Each one ends with this line: "God didn't change the past. He changed how I live after it." That's what He's going for you.
He's not always removing the pain. He's reshaping the purpose through it. God changed his mind about your judgment, not because of what you've done, but because of what Jesus did. When Jesus said, "It is finished," he meant it for your record too. So stop trying to earn forgiveness that's already been paid for. Receive it. Walk in it. Let it free you. You've been carrying shame like it's your cross, but Jesus already carried that. You don't have to bleed anymore. You don't have to beg anymore. You just have to believe. So here's what God is saying, right here, right now. I saw you drowning, and I reached out. I saw you crying, and I saved every tear. I saw you break, and I began to rebuild. I've changed my mind about what the enemy said you'd become. I've changed my mind about the curse that tried to claim you. I've changed my mind about the grave you thought was your ending. He's writing resurrection where you thought it was over. He's building testimony where you only saw trauma. And it all started the moment your heart whispered, "God, I want to come home." That was enough. It always was. So now, walk forward with mercy behind you, with grace beside you, with purpose ahead of you. He changed his mind, not because you forced him, but because you turned toward him. That's all it ever took. You thought it was over, but heaven didn't say amen yet. Your heart broke, your faith wavered, your hands let go of what you were trying so hard to hold together. And even then, God said, "I still want them. I still love them. I still choose them." You may not know what made him say it, but somewhere in your quiet pain, he saw something real, something sacred. And he said, "That's enough. I'm changing what comes next." You see, God isn't looking for spotless records. He's looking for honest returns. And you returned. Not in fireworks, not with perfect prayers, but with a trembling heart that simply said, "God, I'm here." That moment shifted heaven's response to you. There's a story about a man named Rahul. He was a worship leader once. But after years of betrayal, disappointment, and secret sins, he walked away. He ended up running a nightclub. He told his friends, "I don't sing to God anymore. Now, I just survive." But one night, as the music blared and lights pulsed, he caught himself in the bathroom mirror, and he wept. The next morning, he sat on the edge of his bed and said, "God, if there's anything left of me you still want, take it." That was it. No long prayer, no revival service, just surrender. Today, he leads worship again, not on stages with smoke machines, but in hospitals, in quiet corners. He sings for the broken because he knows what it's like to be one of them. And he often says,
God didn't wait for me to get clean. He stepped into my mess and said, "Let's begin again." That's what this is for you too. Not the end, a new beginning. Maybe you've been in hiding, smiling on the outside, dying on the inside. And every day you wonder, is God still with me? The answer is yes. He never left. And more than that, he's been waiting for this moment, the moment where you finally stop performing and just show him your real heart. Because that's when the rebuilding starts. God doesn't work through shame. Shame keeps you running. But grace? Grace makes you stay. Grace says you don't have to hide anymore. There was a woman named Kavita who spent years in an abusive relationship. By the time she got out, she had no sense of identity left. She said, "I don't know who I am without pain." A friend invited her to a small prayer circle. She didn't know how to pray. She just sat in the back. But one line caught her. "God is not mad at you for surviving. He's proud you're still standing." Those words cracked something deep inside her. That night she said to God, "I don't know how to heal, but if you'll help me, I'll follow." Today, she volunteers at a women's shelter, and she's learning to smile again. Not the fake kind, but the kind that comes from freedom. She says, "God didn't judge me for what I tolerated. He helped me remember I was worth more." You might still be bleeding, still healing, still unsure how to move forward. That's okay. God never asked you to walk into your future fully formed. He just asked you to come with a willing heart. He's not rushing you. He's walking with you. And with every step you take, He's erasing the lies spoken over you. Lies like you're too far gone. Lies like you missed your chance. Lies like you'll never be whole again. None of it came from Him. He's the one whispering, "I've changed my mind about you. You're not being punished. You're being positioned." There's a man named Elijah. He was once a missionary. Then depression hit him like a wave. He started drinking, stopped praying, stopped answering calls. One night, he planned to end his life. But as he scrolled through old pictures one last time, he saw a photo of a child he had prayed for years ago. He remembered the boy's smile and the hug after the prayer. That memory saved him. He dropped to the floor and said, "God, I want to come back." That moment became the turning point. Today, Elijah writes letters to missionaries who suffer in silence. He calls it mercy mail. Because now he knows God's mercy never gives up, even when we do. You might think your silence disqualified you, but God knows the pain behind your silence, the prayers you couldn't form, the tears you hid under your pillow, and He honors it all. He's not the God of try harder. He's the God of come closer. That's what changed His mind. Not your perfection, not your good works, your closeness. There's a verse in James 4:8 that says, "Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you." Not fix everything first, not earn your way back. Just draw near. Even in brokenness, even in confusion, that's when He moves. This message isn't about guilt, it's about grace. It's not about fixing your image, it's about finding your identity. Because God isn't interested in the version of you that impresses others. He's interested in the real one, the one who almost gave up but didn't, the one who lost their way but looked back, the one who collapsed and whispered, "Help." There's a couple named Ronit and Neha. Their marriage was falling apart. Infidelity, shouting, silence. They were sleeping in separate rooms. One Sunday, Neha walked into a church alone. Ronit stayed home, convinced nothing could fix what they broke. But Neha left that service with one word in her heart: grace. She went home, looked her husband in the eyes, and said, "I don't know how to forgive you, but I'm willing to try
if you'll meet me halfway." He didn't answer right away, but he cried. That was 5 years ago. Today, they lead a marriage healing group together. Not because they figured it all out, but because they let God rewrite what they thought was destroyed. This is what grace does. This is what happens when God says, "I've changed my mind about you." He doesn't pretend the pain didn't happen. He just promises it won't have the final word. So here's what you do with this moment. Don't run from it. Sit in it. Let it soak into your soul that you are not finished, that God has turned toward you.
That the version of your life you thought was over is now becoming the version that was always meant to be. Because you surrendered, because you opened up, because you turned around. And he says, "I saw that. I felt that." The devil hoped you wouldn't make it to this point. He hoped the silence would make you quit. He hoped the delay would make you walk away. But here you are, still breathing, still listening, still searching. And God sees that. You think it doesn't matter? You think it's small? But that small step toward him was everything. It was enough to change the outcome, enough to rewrite the ending. God says, "I saw your hesitation. I saw your fear, but you came anyway." And that changed everything. You're not a failure. You're a fighter. And even in your trembling faith, God saw the flicker of hope and called it worship. There's a story of a boy named Imran. His mother prayed for him every night, even when he walked deeper into crime, violence, and addiction. He told her once, "Your God doesn't want me. I'm too dirty." She simply replied, "He's already made up his mind about you. One day, you'll believe it." One night, after escaping an arrest by seconds, Imran collapsed in an alley behind a club. He thought it was over, but as he lay there, the words of his mother echoed in his soul. "He's already made up his mind about you." That night, he didn't see angels. He didn't hear thunder. He just didn't get up the same person. Today, he runs a home for young men who want out of the life he once lived. Because God didn't give him what he deserved. He gave him what he never earned. You need to know this. God is not surprised by your failures. He saw them before you made them, and he already had mercy waiting on the other side. This is not a message of guilt. This is a message of rescue. God didn't change his mind because you manipulated him. He changed it because you moved his heart. Remember that verse in Luke 15? The prodigal rehearses his apology. He walks home expecting rejection. He expects to be made a servant. But the father runs before a word is spoken. That's what God did for you. He didn't wait for your perfect explanation. He ran the moment your heart turned. There's a woman named Laura. She was successful, respected, a believer on the outside. But inside, she struggled with secret depression. She smiled in photos but cried in her car. One night, she finally told God, "I can't do this anymore. I'm tired of pretending." That confession didn't ruin her relationship with God. It deepened it. She says now, "When I finally got honest, God didn't push me away. He pulled me closer." Today, Laura mentors young women not to perform their faith, but to live it. Not perfectly, but authentically, because that's what made the difference in her life. God is not waiting for you to get your act together. He's waiting for you to get real. When you do, heaven doesn't hesitate. He says,
I've changed my mind about what the enemy said you'd become. I've changed my mind about the pain you thought would never leave. I've changed my mind about your past being the definition of your worth. You're more than your darkest moment. You're more than your worst decision. You're more than what they said about you. There was a girl named Mira. She was trafficked at 17. No one rescued her. She escaped on her own at 21. She said she didn't believe in God anymore. Until she met a woman at a shelter who held her hand and prayed, not for healing, but for dignity. The woman said, God doesn't just want to heal you. He wants to restore what was stolen. Mira broke down. She didn't want pity. She wanted purpose. And God gave her both. Now she speaks to young girls across India, telling them they're not what happened to them. She says, God didn't change my story overnight, but He changed what my story would mean to the world. That's what He's doing for you too. You're not broken beyond repair. You're broken into beauty. The potter doesn't throw away the clay. He reshapes it. He puts it back on the wheel. He adds water. He spins again. And when it's ready, He calls it His. So if you're standing in the ruins of your choices, feeling like there's no way forward, just stop. Lift your eyes and hear Him say, I've changed my mind about what you deserve. Not because you fixed it, but because you finally surrendered it. You keep asking, how could God still love me after everything? But the real question is, how could He ever stop? He's loved you through rebellion, through silence, through numbness.
And now, He's loving you into redemption. There's a boy named Arjun. He lost both parents by the time he was 12. He bounced through foster homes, learned to fight before he learned to read. He ended up in juvenile prison at 16. Everyone wrote him off, until a guard handed him a New Testament. He read it out of boredom. But something changed when he got to the cross. He said, if this man died for someone like me, maybe my life isn't garbage after all. That sentence, maybe I matter, changed everything. Today, Arjun leads Bible studies in prisons. He says, I was a lost cause, but God changed his mind. Not because I was good, because He is. That's the heart of it. God is good even when we're not. God is faithful even when we're running. God is close even when we're cold. And when we finally look up, He's already running toward us. You may still be dealing with consequences, but consequences are not the same as condemnation. You may still be climbing out of a pit, but that climb is now covered by grace. Every step forward now has His hand under it. He says, I'm walking with you. I'm lifting what you can't carry. I'm fighting battles you haven't seen yet. You're not forgotten. You're not finished. You're not beyond redemption. You are still His. You are still chosen. You are still being written into the story. Let your heart rest in this truth. God changed His mind because you gave Him one reason to: your return. Not your resume, not your righteousness, just your return. That's all it takes. You thought God made up His mind about you and walked away, but He didn't. He waited, watched, whispered through the noise, hoping one day you'd hear Him again. And now you have. That little flicker in your soul right now,
That quiet warmth in your chest while listening, that's not coincidence. That's confirmation. He's saying, yes, you. I've changed what was written against you. I've torn it up. I've started a new page, and this time, you and I are writing it together. You've spent years thinking you missed it. Missed your calling, missed your chance, missed the life you could have had. But God is not bound by clocks or calendars. He doesn't operate on deadlines. He operates on destiny. And destiny isn't canceled by delay. It's deepened by surrender. There's a man named Karan. He was supposed to be a doctor. Top of his class. Scholarships. Everyone said he'll make it. But in his second year, he cracked. Anxiety turned into depression. He dropped out without telling anyone. Ashamed, he disappeared from the life he'd worked for. Worked construction for years. Wouldn't even look at a stethoscope. One day, at a roadside peace stall, he saw a woman collapse. People screamed. No one moved. Without thinking, he rushed forward, gave CPR, saved her. That night, he sat under the stars and whispered, God, I thought you were done with me, but maybe you just waited for my heart to come back first. Today, Karan isn't a hospital doctor, but he teaches first aid to workers in villages, and he saved more lives than he ever imagined. He says, God didn't cancel my purpose. He just redirected it. That's what you need to know right now. Your purpose hasn't expired. It's just evolving. It's not over. It's unfolding. And the reason? Because your heart returned. Because your soul softened. Because you looked up again. That one glance towards heaven was all it took. You think God changed his mind because you finally got it right. But the truth is, he changed his mind because you finally let go. You stopped trying to fix yourself and let him enter the ruins. You stopped hiding and let him see the unfiltered version of you. That's what he wanted all along. Not your perfection, your permission. There's a woman named Nadia. She was divorced twice before 30. Carried shame like a second skin. Every time she walked into church, she felt like everyone was staring. One day, she heard someone say, "Your story isn't your sin. Your story is your surrender." That line echoed in her soul. She went home, locked her door, and prayed the realest prayer she had ever prayed. God, I don't know what you see in me, but I give you everything I am. That day didn't erase her past, but it awakened her future. Today, Nadia runs a ministry for single mothers. She doesn't preach about fairy tales. She preaches about grace in the grit. And she says, I thought God was embarrassed of me, but he was just waiting for me to come as I was. You're not too complicated for God. You're not too far. He's not interested in what broke you. He's interested in what's growing from the cracks. You may still feel unqualified, but he qualifies the ones who come back, even if they return with limp steps and tear-streaked faces.
You're not where you used to be. You may not be where you want to be, but look at you. You're still here, still breathing, still believing, if only by a thread. And God says, that thread is enough. I can pull you back with it. I can weave something eternal from it. A boy named Aditya was born into poverty. He saw hunger before he saw hope.
At 15, he started stealing to survive. One day, he broke into a church thinking it was empty, but there was an old pastor inside. The pastor didn't scream, didn't call the police. He just looked at him and said, "You're not a thief. You're just hungry." He gave Aditya food, a blanket, a chance. That moment changed everything. Today, Aditya runs a feeding program in 18 villages. He says, "That man didn't see who I was. He saw who I could become." That's what God does. That's what grace does. You thought God was tracking your failures, but He was following your footsteps, waiting for you to turn back. And now that you have, He's changing the outcome. Some people think God only shows up when thunder rolls and mountains shake, but often He shows up like this, in a quiet message, in a sentence that feels too personal to be random, in the still, small voice that whispers, "You're not done. You're not disqualified. You're mine." There's no distance that scares Him, no secret that makes Him turn away, no sin that can overpower the blood of Jesus. You've been rehearsing the reasons He should reject you, but He's been writing new reasons to restore you. And here's the biggest one: because He loves you. Still, always, completely. Your pain didn't change that. Your silence didn't cancel that. Your mistakes didn't mute that. He loves you enough to redeem everything. There's a girl named Sana. She got pregnant at 19, left alone, cut off, judged. She sat on a park bench once and said, "If God's still with me, give me a sign." A little girl walked by and handed her a flower, smiled, walked away. Sana cried for an hour. That was her sign. Not fireworks, just a flower. Just enough. Today, her daughter is 7, and Sana, she writes letters to other young women with unexpected pregnancies. Every letter ends the same: "You're still worthy. God hasn't changed His mind about you, and neither has He about you. You thought you were discarded. You're being displayed. You thought you were counted out. You're being counted on. This is your time. This is your moment. This is your return. And God is not angry. He is ready. So stand up, even if your legs shake. Speak out, even if your voice trembles. Move forward, even if you don't see the full road ahead, because mercy is lighting the way, and God is walking beside you. He says, "I've changed my mind, not because I had to, but because I wanted to, because I saw your heart again, and I loved what I saw." You didn't earn this moment. You didn't climb high enough or pray long enough to make this happen. It's not a reward. It's a rescue. He came for you because when He looked at your life, the regret, the mistakes, the mischances, the silent cries, He didn't see a project to fix. He saw a child to love. And love makes decisions mercy can carry. So yes, He changed His mind about what was coming against you, about what was going to be your consequence, about what the enemy said was final, because God saw what the world couldn't: your return, your reach, your quiet yes, and heaven responded. There's a man named Vinod. He lived for money, status, power, built an empire on the backs of people who feared him. Then one day, his company crumbled. His name was dragged. His pride was shattered. He said, "I lost everything. But maybe that's how God finally got through to me." In the quiet of bankruptcy, he found the only wealth that mattered: mercy. He began volunteering at a local food bank. At first, it was penance, but slowly it became worship. He now runs a foundation that helps restore families who've lost everything in business collapse. He says, "I was the one God shouldn't have chosen again, but He did, and I'll never stop thanking Him for it." You might feel like you're sitting in the ashes, everything burnt down, nothing left. But God builds best from ashes.
He doesn't sweep them away. He breathes on them, and suddenly, beauty rises. You thought your calling was canceled, but heaven only paused it until your heart was ready. Now it is. And the proof? This message, these words, the stillness in your spirit that knows this isn't just another video. This is God knocking again. He hasn't forgotten what he said about you. Before the foundation of the world, he spoke over your life. He declared purpose, identity, destiny. And no mistake you've made since has edited that. You think God changed his mind about loving you? No. He changed his mind about punishing you. He chose mercy. A girl named Anaya ran away at 17, said she'd never be like her mother, said God was a myth, lived wild, dangerous, angry. Then, one night at a party, she overdosed. As the room blurred, she said only 2 words, "Help me." When she woke up in a hospital bed, there was a small cross taped to the monitor. No one could explain how it got there, but she knew. That was the moment she came back, not to religion, but to relationship. Today, she runs an outreach for young runaway girls. She's quiet, kind, but when she speaks about God, it's fire. She says, "He should have let me die, but he changed his mind because I whispered 2 words." Maybe you've only whispered 2 words. Maybe you've only managed a sigh, a tear, a glance at heaven when no one was watching. That was enough. You don't need a speech. You need a Savior. And you have one. Jesus didn't die for perfect people. He died for you, for this version of you, tired, confused, ashamed, and still showing up. The version that nearly gave up. The version that didn't believe they'd ever feel peace again. That's who he came for. That's who's he's calling right now. There's a boy named Ishan, bullied for years. He used to hide behind the school church building and cry. One day, a janitor found him, handed him a notebook and said, "Write your prayers here, even if you don't think they matter." He started writing, not knowing what to say. But one day he wrote, "God, I want to be brave." Years later, that same boy became a teacher, the same school. And every week he gives students their own notebook and says, "Write what your soul can't say out loud," because God made him brave, and all it took was 1 sentence. That's what grace does. It changes everything with just 1 reach. You don't need 1,000 right decisions. You need 1 right direction toward him. You thought God was calculating your failures, but he was counting the times you whispered his name when no one else knew. You thought your sins built a wall, but they were only dust in his hands, and he's been waiting to blow them away. So here's what you need to do. Don't run from grace. Don't hide from it. Don't push it away because you think you're not ready. Grace is ready for you, right now. It's not asking you to climb. It's asking you to come. A woman named Ritika lost her faith after losing her baby. She stopped praying, stopped attending anything spiritual. She told God, "If you're real, prove it. But I'm not playing church anymore." Years later,
On a random afternoon, she opened a dusty drawer and found a note she'd written to her baby before birth. It ended with this line, "God, protect this child and make me strong enough to be their mother." She broke down, not because of pain, but because she realized God had been protecting her this whole time. Her heart didn't heal in an instant, but it opened, and that was the beginning of restoration. Now, Ritika helps grieving mothers find language for pain and hope. She says, "I thought I lost my faith, but really, I lost my fight. God waited until I wanted to live again. Then He met me there." Maybe you've lost your fight too. But here's the truth. You don't need to fight for God. He already fought for you. The cross proves that. The empty tomb proves that. Your heartbeat right now proves that. You didn't earn your second chance, but it's still yours because God changed His mind. Not about who you were. He always knew. He changed His mind about the punishment that should have landed on you. He placed it on Jesus. Now you're free. So now what do? You walk in grace, even if your legs tremble, even if you don't have all the answers, even if you're still healing.
You walk anyway, because your story is no longer one of failure. It's one of freedom. There comes a moment in every story where everything turns, not because the main character becomes perfect, but because they choose to return. This is that moment for you. The turn, the pivot, the shift in the atmosphere you've been waiting for. Not because you made the right choices every time, but because you made the right choice this time. You turned your face toward the Father, and He said, "That's all I was waiting for." It doesn't matter what was behind you. You could have walked 1,000 steps away, but the moment you took one step back, heaven sprinted the rest of the way. That's the love that changes minds. That's the mercy that rewrites endings. You thought God was finished with you, but He never stopped writing. He simply paused and waited for your heart to align again. Now it has, and the story continues, not in shame, but in glory. A man named Reuben spent 30 years angry at God. He grew up in church, but watched his father abuse his mother behind closed doors. He thought, if this is what believers look like, I want nothing to do with it. He left home, left faith, left everything. He lived fast, carelessly. He had money, but no peace. And the silence in his heart got louder every year. At 55, he found himself staring out a window, wondering what he'd done with his life. And a phrase popped into his mind he hadn't heard in decades. Come home. That day, he drove to the nearest church. He didn't talk, didn't explain. He just sat in the back and cried. Now he's 61. He counsels men with church wounds. He says, I didn't find God. He never left. I just let Him love me again. That's what's happening here. You're not finding a lost God. You're finding the God who never stopped calling your name. He's not showing up to judge. He's showing up to reclaim. You. There's a woman named Naomi. She grew up believing she had to be flawless to be favored. So she performed, smiled, achieved. But she never felt truly loved. One night, after years of burnout and bitterness, she whispered, God, do you love me? Not my work, not my words, but me? She opened her Bible at random. It landed on Romans 5:8. But God demonstrates His own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. She wept. That verse didn't tell her to try harder. It told her to rest in what's already been done.
Now she teaches young women to stop performing and start receiving. She says, "When I stopped auditioning for love, I finally found it." You don't need to audition either. You already have the role. Beloved, redeemed, chosen. Not because you impressed God, but because you returned to Him. You may be thinking, but what if I mess up again? God knew you would. He's not asking for perfection, He's asking for presence. Stay near, even when you stumble, even when you struggle, even when doubt creeps back in, because His love doesn't flinch when you fall. It catches you and sets you back on your feet, again and again and again. There's a boy named Samuel. He struggled with addiction for over a decade, in and out of rehab, in and out of church. People gave up on him, even pastors. But not his grandmother. She prayed every day, every night. One day, in the middle of a withdrawal episode, he collapsed in a church parking lot. A stranger found him, carried him inside, prayed with him. That moment changed everything. Samuel didn't become perfect overnight, but he became free. Today, he runs recovery groups rooted in faith. He says, "I failed 1,000 times, but God never changed His mind about saving me." You might be that person right now, still in the struggle, still in the in-between, still wondering if grace applies to you. It does. It applies to the addict, the skeptic, the exhausted parent, the shattered soul. It applies to the one who's scared to hope again, to the one who's been burned by religion, to the one who's trying, quietly, just to feel again, and especially to the one who keeps failing but keeps coming back. You're not a disappointment. You're a testimony in the making, and God is proud of you. Yes, you heard that right. Proud. Not because of what you've achieved, but because of what you've endured and didn't let kill your soul. You're still here, still reaching, still believing. That's courage, and heaven celebrates it. You've been living under a verdict that was never God's. Someone called you unworthy. Someone said you blew it. Someone told you you'd never change. But they don't have the final word. God does. And today, He's saying, "I've changed my mind about you. I'm lifting the sentence. I'm tearing the label. I'm calling you mine. You were never meant to carry all this weight. Drop it. Let Him take it. Guilt? Gone. Shame? Erased. Fear? Silenced. All because mercy stood in the gap. All because Jesus said, 'It is finished.' Now your future begins. Not perfect, but possible and beautiful. Because it's no longer built on effort. It's built on grace. There's one last man to tell you about. His name, Peter. He denied Jesus 3 times, publicly, painfully. He thought he was done, disqualified, unworthy. But after the resurrection, Jesus looked him in the eyes and asked, "Do you love me?" Peter said yes, 3 times. And each time Jesus responded, "Feed my sheep." In other words, I'm not done with you. I've changed my mind about the ending. That's your story too. Jesus is asking now, do you love me? If your answer is yes, even a quiet, trembling yes, He's saying, then let's begin again from this moment. You don't need to crawl back. You can walk in. Heaven is open. The Father is waiting. The story is turning. Right now. And all of heaven is echoing, "I've changed my mind about you, because your heart turned, because my love never left, because mercy wins."
This is your new beginning. This is grace alive. Walk in it forever.